Welcome back to Fox 8 News at 9. Fred Hickman here, and I'm joined now by Mike Triplett of the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com. And we're talking Saints here. Mike, the schedule came out last week, as we all know. The Saints have a big boy agenda ahead of them. Only Carolina's schedule is tougher based on opponents' records.
Which means the whole NFC South has a tough schedule.
Exactly, that's correct. Let me get your thoughts first on the schedule overall.
Well, you know, I was going to do a thing. I was pre-assigned to write that the 5 games I thought were going to have the biggest impact on the Saints season. Before the schedule came out, I had some thoughts, and one was that first game is going to be huge. You know, get off on the right foot. And another thought was they got to beat Atlanta at home. The 2 Atlanta games are big, and boom, it's the same thing. Atlanta at home, week 1. I mean, there's not going to be a more important game for the Saints all season than that week 1 game, I think. I mean, I think they'll be neck and neck with the Falcons for the NFC South title again this year, and I think they got to win that home game in week 1. They don't want to be playing catch-up again like they were last year.
All right, well, let's start with those first 4 games. As you mentioned, it starts off with Atlanta at the Dome. That's tough. Many pundits out there are calling Atlanta the team to beat in the NFL. Do you agree?
Not necessarily. I mean, they keep having a great regular season record. The Saints match up pretty well against them. I still will call the San Francisco 49ers the team to beat in the NFC. I mean, they looked so good, and they've been so great on defense and in their run game. Now their quarterback that they found last year might be their best weapon. I think that'll be the team to beat in the NFC this year.
All right, moving on to the second 4 weeks, you got road games in Chicago, at New England. That's the bad news. The good news is they're both in October, so the weather's going to be their friend.
Exactly. You know, the Saints have a really tough travel schedule this year, but weather-wise, they couldn't be happier with the way things played out because they're at the Jets, at New England, at Chicago, and at Seattle this year. They got 3 of those games early. Seattle, December 2nd, I think it was, first week of December. Could be tricky with rain and cold, but to get Chicago, New York, and New England early, I'd say that's a gift compared to a schedule that we knew was going to be tough.
And you talked about the Jets, and that brings us into November, which could be awfully rugged. You got the Jets, shouldn't be a problem on paper, but then Dallas, San Francisco coming in and on the road for Atlanta. That's brutal.
Yeah, that's the stretch. You got to hope they take advantage of a quote-unquote weaker schedule early in the year. They have sort of a weaker finish, but that's a stretch that's going to test them. I mean, one of the things I highlighted is they better win that Dallas game early because it's not going to get any easier after that. What is it, Atlanta and San Francisco in a matter of 5 days, and obviously we saw that was the back-to-back stretch exactly the same way last year that really derailed their season. So by that time of year, they certainly want to be in a comfortable position where maybe they can afford a couple losses. They don't want to be in must-win games at that stretch.
Now, all that leads us into kind of a little mini bye week there. You've got heading out west for Seattle, but there's an 11-day stretch in between there, so that's good news, but followed by a double dose of Cam Newton in the space of 3 weeks.
Those Seattle and Carolina were 2 games I put on these 5 games that are going to make or break their season. Seattle I ranked number 2, right behind that Atlanta game, because as I just said, I think San Francisco is going to be the best team in the NFC this year, which means if that comes true, the Saints in Seattle could be jockeying for wild card position. You know, obviously the Saints could win the NFC South, but they've got all the other teams that could be jockeying for playoff position with them. Atlanta in their division, Carolina and Tampa in their division, and then they've got the Bears, the Seahawks, the Cowboys, other teams that could be in wild card contention. They're gonna determine their own fate in head-to-head battles, and that game at Seattle is absolutely gonna be one of them. And then you get Carolina twice in the final 4 weeks. I don't know if Carolina will be a playoff contender. I think they're just below playoff contender status, but the Saints are going to have to beat them to keep them from sneaking in ahead of them.
And every game is important, as we know, on a 16-game schedule, but you finish up at home against Tampa Bay, and who knows what they're going to be bringing to the table.
The Saints have a bad history at home late in the season against Tampa Bay in recent years. You know, ideally, their playoff fate will be settled by then. But yeah, they may have to prove it against the Buccaneers at home, something that's proven tough to do for them in recent years. I like this, even though Darrelle Revis looks like could end up on the Buccaneers this year. I still like the Saints to be back, even though they finished a 3-way tie last year, the Saints, Panthers, and Buccaneers. I still think it's Falcons and Saints, Panthers and Buccaneers in that division. Obviously, things could change, but I think that's how this season will play out.
Well, you can never get enough of Mike, and that's good because he's not going anywhere. He's going to be back here at 10:30 for the final play.